You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Here we are in wonderful podcast land, where everything's warm and cozy and nice and all that good stuff. Really excited for this episode. This one's really cool. Today I'm talking with Joey Bradford, who is the guitarist for The Used, a band that I've listened to for a long time. And him and I have crossed paths, actually, we discovered on the podcast a time or two. He has a really interesting story. He's living out a really cool life and doing some really rad stuff. So I will not bend your ear too much more, but just want to remind everybody about the Facebook group. The last plug I did, we had a bunch of new members. So here's another plug. If you go to Facebook and type in The Tone Mob, you'll see the group. It's a private group. There's about 2,400 of us in there or so, hanging out, talking about basically anything that we talk about on this show. So, you know, it ranges quite widely. But it's a good time, and everybody's cool. So if you're a jerk, please don't apply. We've already kicked out enough of those already. Actually, I really haven't had to do that very much. Seems to attract a good crew of people in there. But yeah, that's a place you can go and nerd out. I'm in there almost every day, and it's just a good time. And I also want to remind you about NAMM, because it's coming. And I said I wasn't going to do a pizza party this year, but I am going to do something. I thought it would be fun to do a listener meetup of some sort. It would just be weird if we didn't have some sort of Tone Mob gathering. And so I decided that Thursday evening, so after the show closes on the 16th, Thursday evening at 7 p.m., we're going to go over to the Anaheim Packing District, which is a big food court with all kinds of stuff from grilled cheese, Vietnamese food, Indian food, pizza, of course. They got burgers. I've seen some fried chicken. There's all kinds of stuff. So there's something for everybody there, and it looks big enough to house. We had like 100 people show up to the pizza party last year, and it was kind of crazy. So I don't know how many people are going to show up to this, but I figure we could just all meet up. We can eat some dinner, we can talk some tone, talk about the show, and just hang out and have a good time. Nothing too official, pretty just loosey-goosey, and we'll all just chill. So yeah, 7 p.m. at the Anaheim Packing District. We'll call it the Tone Mob Meetup instead of Pizza Party, because some people might not eat pizza. I don't know what they're going to eat. But yeah, I think that'll be a good time. And yeah, that's probably good enough of pluggage for this episode. Well, let's get right into it. Let's do it. So without further ado, here is Mr. Joey Bradford from The Used. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have Joey Bradford from The Used. What's going on, man?
Just out here living my life, you know?
Yeah, just chilling.
Just chilling, enjoying the nice Southern California winter. It's beautiful.
It was a balmy 78.
Yeah, I don't think it's even up there yet. I think it's like 72 today. It's kind of perfect. It's disgusting.
That's dialed. Yeah, I don't know what we are today, but it's wet and cold because that's where Portland is.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there, though.
I do love it. I wouldn't live anywhere else, to be honest. I complain about it incessantly, but I actually genuinely do love it.
That's beautiful.
So you do a lot of things. I maybe undersold you a little bit as just being from The Used. Like that's
no,
not
that is
that's not an
that is the coolest thing I do for sure.
That is pretty amazing. I'm a big fan. So, and have been for a long time, which sounds weird to say, but I have been for a very long time at this point. I can say I've been a fan of things for a long time, which means I'm getting old. which is
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that hard.
But I think we should probably dive into your whole backstory, because I feel like it's probably pretty interesting, and I don't know really anything about it. So let's do that. Start
Yeah, I
from
love
when
it.
you first picked up the instrument.
Oh, geez. I got into guitar when I was in the 6th grade, and my older brother Steven, he had been given a guitar for Christmas, an acoustic guitar, this old Takamine was awesome, doesn't exist anymore, but he got it, and he, swore up and down, don't even look at it, don't touch it, it's not yours, So I would wait till he went to bed, sneak out, and grab his guitar out of the closet and go play it in the middle of the night.
Of course.
As you do, put it on my lap and kind of play up where the 12th fret is. And I distinctly remember discovering that, the octave of an open note was the same on the 12th fret. And I was like, this is something. And from there, I have no idea how the process went for me learning to be a real guitar player. It kind of just is all a blur from there. But yeah, I started in 6th grade. I had a couple buddies at school that played guitar that were really good, and showed me how to play some Blink-182 songs. And I would watch the worship leaders at my church playing G, C, and D, and kind of figured out how to get my fingers to do that at home. And then I was off. Pop punk and worship music got me super into the guitar. And it wasn't really a passion for me in middle school or high school either. It was kind of just something I did with my friends, and played in some bands, played in a pop punk band in high school with Cove Reber, who sang for Seosin and is now in a band called Dead American. So he and I started out together doing that. And my older brother was always in like the cool band. If you guys all remember from high school, there was always the band that was good.
Yes.
And my brother was always in that band. So I kind of hung around him and his friends, and they all had little brothers. And a couple of those guys I still play music with today. So yeah, man, got into it that way. And then, man, as far as touring and doing it professionally, it kind of just happened, our group of friends from our high school, from Vista High School, we had a few dudes who ended up jumping into touring bands right out of high school. We didn't even know that was a real thing. It was an unattainable, like out of our mind thing we didn't really think about doing. But our buddy Phil Scrosso joined As I Lay Dying right out of high school. And some of our friends ended up being crew for them. And then when Cove joined Seosin right out of high school, he was like, hey, do you want to be our merch guy? I'm like, sure, I can do that. I'm not going to college, So, yeah, jumped out, started doing merch. I did merch for like 5 years, started when I was 18. And during that process, I played in a few bands at home, and I would kind of fill in for people. I got to fill in for Thrice and play a few shows for them playing guitar.
Wow.
I played with Static Lullaby for a little bit. Who else did I do cool stuff with? I played with Atreyu for a while. I've had the most random kind of back and forth career. I went from selling merch to playing in bands and doing small time touring. And then I became a guitar tech, and then I would fill in for more bands. And then, then the Used opportunity came up a couple years ago, and their manager was managing my band Hell or High Water at the time with Brandon Saller from Atreyu and Kyle Rosa, who also plays in Dead American, and all these insane musicians. But we did that, and that kind of connected all the dots. I mean, I got to make these relationships with people I hadn't previously made as a merch guy. I was stuck in the front of the venue for years, and it's kind of crazy talking about it in order, but yep, from merch to fill-in dude to my bands kind of trying to do their thing and then joining the Used, and it's been incredible. We just made a record, and super wild. I can't believe I'm still doing it.
It's funny that you're talking about all this stuff that you've done, and I'm sitting here wondering, I'm like, have I crossed paths with you as an audience member at some point? Probably so. Probably merch, a couple times.
Yeah, doing merch was cool. I worked for, I started working for Seosin. I worked for Thrice for a little bit after I filled in on guitar for them, which was awesome. I went from guitar to merch. And then I worked for Dredge for quite a few years. That was a lot of fun. I would watch them every night. They were one of those bands that blew my mind every single night they played. They were incredible. And yeah, through that, I mean, I met so many cool bands. I got to tour with so many people. I went out with Manchester Orchestra and Brand New and Oh Brother, and kind of that whole scene of bands from the South and the East Coast kind of took me in, and I just bounced around all those spots. But yeah, wild, man. I'm sure you were at one of the shows. We all love rock music.
I guarantee you I was at several of those shows. I probably bought a t-shirt from you at some point.
Dude, I see people wearing shirts at shows all the time, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I sold them that shirt.
That's so crazy. I mean, a lot of the listeners know this already, but I'm a diehard Thrice fan. And so I've been to almost every show that they've played here in Portland, except for a couple where I just had some emergencies. Literally, like I had tickets but had to bail, and it was heartbreaking. But
I've been there.
It's kind of funny thinking about that. I'm like, man, I wonder how many Thrice items I've bought from you personally. And then Seos, and when Cove was with them specifically, I went to that, those shows too. So it's kind of, I didn't know all that. This is crazy to be sitting here right now.
Yeah, that kind of broke me into this whole industry. Cove and I grew up. He's still one of my best friends ever, and we've been working together for like 16 years now. And yeah, him joining Seosin was kind of a big step for our whole group of friends. We had Phil and Asley Dying and Cove and Seosin, and we're all 18 years old going,
wow,
oh crap. Okay, I guess it's attainable to be in a band that is successful and pays the bills to that extent when we were kids,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it kind of just opened up a whole world for our whole crew, just going like, there's not really a shelf. I mean, if, for us, our little dumb friends were like, well, if Cove can do it, we can do it. If Phil can make it, we can make it, not realizing that we just have this insanely talented and lucky group of friends. But yeah, man, it was a trip, like, and getting to put all those things on my, quote unquote resume got me in the door with a lot of spots, and got me able to audition for bands and fill in for people, and gave me a little bit of credibility because my friends were, real musicians or whatever.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy how this all works because, a couple years ago, even when I started this show, it was, I never thought that I would get to talk to people like you, or, and I'm scheduled, knock on wood that it's going to happen, but I'm scheduled to go interview Thrice at the end of this month. And it's like, my little mind can't hardly handle that, because I'm still just this, 15-year-old kid in the mosh pit in my head. It's so insane. I'm
still, honestly, Thrice was out on our summer tour with us on Uproar tour, and I've known the guys now for 11 years, I guess it is 10, 11 years, and I'm still like, it's still a little tough for me. I'm like, hey guys, like, I know that we're friends now, but you don't understand. Like, Identity Crisis is, my favorite jams ever. And I crashed my car listening to your band when I was 16. Like, it's wild that I got to play some shows with them, but I'm still like kind of starstruck around my buds, which I guess is this whole industry, right? Like, we tour with so many bands I love and I grew up listening to, and watching younger bands come up and impress me and get me excited about music it's such a trip. But yeah, I'm still like a little kid out there all the time, just getting to high five my idols and whatever.
And it's fascinating to me how I mean, mostly started, interviewing gear people. And so it was fascinating to me that how cool everyone was in the gear industry and the, pedal makers and all. I'm like, wow, they're just like me. And then starting to interview more musicians and people that I've really, that again, like you're talking about, people that I grew up listening to, and becoming, pals with them. And it's just like, this is so crazy. We're all the same. I thought you guys were like rock stars, but you're just like me. You're a nerd just like me. It's so crazy.
It's really good, man. You think about guys in bands and guys that get really good at their craft. It's like, we all spent more time in our bedroom playing guitar than, chasing girls or whatever it was when we were young. I did my fair amount of both, but, but we're all just kind of like, we can find common ground with each other. There's not that many people out there that can really relate with this whole weird lifestyle that we've fallen into. And it's a huge blessing and a wild life, man. I honestly wake up every day going, this is weird that I get to support my family by playing guitar and writing music and doing things that I really love. I don't feel like I've earned it.
I can relate to that in a big way. Like I'm like, I support my family by talking. I was told to shut up my whole life. What's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on
it's
here?
perfect.
Like
Yeah,
this
I
is
think the lesson to life is just do the opposite of what everyone tells you when you're a kid, right? It's kind of
I mean, I think you're 100% right about that, and that could lead to a rant on the education system that we probably don't want to get into.
we won't touch it. We know. It's all
We
good.
know. If you want to hear my thoughts, email me. I'll give you the
Yeah.
whole spiel.
Oh man. Yeah,
So
we'll
let's
step away from that.
Yeah, we'll back away from that slowly, like Homer Simpson disappearing into a hedge, and we'll get to the gear stuff. So,
Yeah.
what did you start out playing, and what kind of stuff have you ended up with?
Oh man. So when I started playing guitar, which was kind of short lived in my career of being a musician, I ended up playing bass for most of my career. But when I was playing guitar, man, I remember my first electric guitar I had was a De Armand, and I had stickers all over it. You know, I've looked this guitar up online since, and it's still like a $200 guitar or something like that. But I remember my dad took me to Guitar Center when I was, how old was I? I guess I was like maybe 13 or 14, like freshman year of high school, I think it was. I was like, hey, I got to graduate. I'm going to play with my dudes. I need an amp and an electric guitar. So we went. I got this De Armand guitar. It was like a creamy, painted, just ugly guitar, but it was, you know, had the Les Paul cut. So it looked like a quote unquote real guitar. And I had a crate amp that had built-in effects. And I remember going straight in my room for months, just sitting on that amp and messing with the delay and the reverb and putting power chords together. And, you know, we didn't have YouTube way back when. So I'm just, you know, watching other people play guitar and yeah, man. That was when I started playing my crate and my De Armand. And then I graduated to an Epiphone Les Paul, also a Guitar Center purchase. And then I remember my first half stack. I had to have a half stack. I knew nothing about gear, knew nothing about what amp I really needed. I just knew I needed a half stack. I got to have a head and a cab, you know.
Of course.
And I got it was a B52. Man, I don't even remember anything about it other than it was a B52 half stack. It was, you know, one half step up from the crate that I was playing, but it was loud enough to play with the drums, which is why I had to get it. I remember cranking that crate thing up as loud as I could. And I was like, man, this is completely drowned out by my drummer's, you know, splash or whatever he was crushing. But yeah, man, we got these little rigs, and it was me and Cove and our buddy Kellen, who plays in a band called Fruition from Portland. Actually, I don't know if you know them, but they're incredible. They're incredible folk band. And then our buddy Victor Wilson, he doesn't play music anymore, but he started like a charity organization in Vietnam. He's adopting kids. He's like by far better than all of us that are still playing music.
Wow.
But yeah, we had our band. We would play in his garage, and man, we immediately started writing songs. That was one thing that stayed with me forever. Is a lot of my friends' bands were trying to learn other people's stuff, and you know, oh, we're gonna learn a Sum 41 song or a Blink song or whatever it is, and we jumped right into writing music, and it wasn't any good, you know, and our lyrical content was pretty terrible, but but we were sitting in a room and we were, you know, with a notepad and jamming chords and writing stuff down, and you know, we were able to play a full song together pretty quick. And yeah, man, it was a trip. Our parents would drop us off, and I'd unload the gear out of the trunk of the car, and those are some of the best memories I have of playing music, man. It was just kind of like a cul-de-sac at our friend's neighborhood, and different dudes would show up and kind of jam with us sometimes. And yeah, and then we would play. Well, man, my first show ever with that band with the B52 was in the quad of our high school in 9th grade. We played a show in the quad during lunch, and then that night we went over and we played a show at an ice rink. They set up carpet on the ice, and we put all our gear on the ice, and we played a show. And yeah, and then we were in. You know, we were sucked in, and yeah, man, I think we did 3 EPs while we were all in high school, and you know, never expected it to go anywhere. We were just having fun, and we all played sports and did other crap along the way. And yeah, and then Cove joined a real band, and then we were all screwed. We're like, well, I want to do that too. Yeah, but man, I didn't start playing cool gear until my senior year of high school. I was 17 and I joined a band with Kyle Rosa playing drums, who's still my favorite drummer of all time. He plays in Dead American. But we were in this band called Thieves and Liars. It was he and then our buddy Corey playing guitar, who played in Project 86. He was in No Innocent Victim. He was like this hardcore legend, a few years older than us. And he took us in and had written all these incredible classic rock songs, which at the time was way over my head. I was kind of like, I've been playing pop punk. Like my brothers showed me Radiohead and Coldplay and a couple cool bands, but I hadn't really been opened up to, even the Beatles or Zeppelin or Floyd or any of these things that are my favorite bands now. I wasn't until I was 17 that I was really exposed to those bands and that music.
I totally get it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like a product of my environment. I was into Rufio and Yellow Card and these fast punk bands and Lagwagon and all this fun stuff. But yeah, I'm 17. I joined this band because I want to play shows and play with these musicians that are better than me. And I showed up and I had borrowed my brother's. He had like a 3/4 Gretsch bass. It was like a $200 bass. And I went back to having this little combo Ampeg amp. I didn't have any money. I didn't have anything, and I show up in our guitar player in this little room. He's got 2 Marshall Plexi full stacks, cranked to 11, no attenuator, no nothing. It was just like, and he's playing a Les Paul. Like, it was the most legit rig I'd ever seen. And I like embarrassingly walk in with my little 3/4 Gretsch. I think I had like a wood nut that I had built myself because I blew out the nut, and we start jamming and it's like same as when I started playing music. I'm like, shoot, I can't even hear myself. We got this insane plexi, we got the drums crushing, and I'm playing this little dinky amp. But yeah, so then my gear journey started. I bought it was a 1972 Ampeg 810, and then I also bought a 1971 Ampeg SVT head, which was incredible. And I had two different ones over that 5-year span, but that was wild. I mean, I played that rig. I still have the cab to this day, but I played that head pretty much the whole time I was a bass player. And I would just run a tube screamer straight into the head and crank that sucker up. And it was, rarely does a bass player at a show have dudes come up and be like, yo, sickest bass tone ever. It's like, it's just kind of an afterthought, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. But that period of my life, it was like every show we would play, people would come up to me and be like, dude, your bass tone is so incredible. I was playing a 72 Fender P bass at the time too. So I was just like, I just had one pedal. I had my tuner, my tube screamer, my TS9, and then, dude, straight into that SVT. And it was balls. It was so sick. I regret selling it, but I had to pay rent or something for whatever I was trying to catch up on when I was 22,
Mm-hmm. And the SVTs, it's hard to go wrong with the SVTs. Like they're just so classic sounding. I don't know what it is about them. I don't have one myself.
Like a bass,
but yeah, it's like the sound of rock and roll bass to me.
Straight
in my
up.
head.
And I think all of those records, even the punk records that I listened to growing up, I think everyone was playing those. So it was like, you plug in and turn it to 11 and it's like, oh, that sounds like every bass I've ever loved. And even at the time, I wasn't huge tone guy. I was just like, well, I want to get stuff that the people I look up to are telling me I should get. Like, I'm not going to educate myself at all. I'm just going to buy what I'm told to get. And, I lucked out and realized that it sounded incredible. So I just stuck with it for years and years and years. But yeah, man, I played bass forever. I played bass all the way up until, I guess, 2015. So the first 12 years of my quote unquote career, I was a bass player. And actually the first time I had played guitar on stage since high school was in 2009 when I filled in for Thrice. Dustin came up to me. I was actually working for Invisible Children on a tour with Thrice.
Okay,
and he came up to me. Yeah. So that was 2009. And then, Dustin came up to me at the merch table and was like, "Hey, bud, you play guitar, right?" I'm like, "Of course I play guitar. Like, what are you asking? What's up?" And he's like, "Tepe has to leave for a little bit. Would you be down to fill in and play guitar for us for the next, like, I think it was 4 shows then that I played?" And I obviously said yes. And then he's like, "Cool, we got a day off tomorrow and then a show the day after that. Here's the list of songs." And he walked away, and I was just like, "Oh crap. Like,
Oh no.
I hope I can pull this off. I haven't done this in years, but I play guitar every day, but I
Those
had
are
this
big shoes
weird,
to fill.
yeah, I like my favorite guitar player from being a child, fortunately, he's like, "Do you know the songs?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll figure them out." Like, I haven't been playing these songs in my bedroom my whole life, but, but yeah, man, it was a trip. And, yeah, that evening I went on the bus with Tepe before he left, and he kind of showed me some of the riffs. He's like, "It's easy. You'll get it. Here's the riff." And, next one. Like, well, yeah, it's easy for you, man. Like, you
Yeah,
wrote
you
these,
wrote
you've been
them.
playing them forever. Like, I'm sure eventually it will be attainable for me, but man, I had to slam down. I think it was 6 songs that I played in the set, and I split the set with 2 of the dudes from Deer Hunter. But yeah, it was a trip, dude. That next day I sat in a hotel with Tepe's Les Paul that, like his Black Beauty. That's my favorite guitar I'd ever seen. And I'm sitting in
Yeah.
a,
Oh.
yeah, sitting in a hotel room learning Tepe's parts on his guitar. It was like, this isn't real. And then got to play the shows, and they were super awesome. I have some crappy footage that I filmed on my laptop that's like backwards. I use the like the camera so it looks like we're all left-handed. That's the best footage I have. But yeah, that was the first time I'd play guitar.
I was gonna say, do you remember what that is? I don't think I could do that. First of all, like I can
You gotta
play
jump
some
in.
of their stuff, but like I'm weird about stages and stuff. I get, well, you had a lot of practice with it, and I haven't. But like every time I've played on stage, or I'm totally fine with like public speaking and things like that. That doesn't bother me. But playing in front of people bothers me.
I feel like I'm the exact
weird.
opposite. Like,
Really?
public speaking kind of seems like I would freak out and seize up, and like my comfort zone and my comfort blanket, I guess, is my guitar. And is like, that's when I'm able to turn on the switch and become an entertainer and be an idiot on stage. My thing is, which has kind of always been, but my thing is headbanging and running around the stage and sweating and jumping into the drums and stuff like that is just not what you would expect from my personality off of the stage. But yeah, getting up in front of people with a microphone and talking about something that freaks me out. Like, I have nothing to hide behind,
Right. I don't know
Good
if
on
maybe
you.
it's all this podcasting stuff, but I don't know. I've always kind of been that way. Like speeches in school and stuff were like, yeah, no sweat, I got this.
Man,
But
our
yeah,
powers
every time
combined, we would kill.
we'd be great. I don't know what we would do. I'd just
Something
be talking
cool.
over you shredding. And that,
Yeah,
I guess
it's a
that could be
band.
cool.
That's all a band is.
But I wanted to backpedal a little bit to when just because I'm a nerd. What Thrice songs were you playing, or do any of them stand out as like being particularly difficult?
I don't know about difficult, but I got to play Deadbolt, and that was like, I think that was realistically, like, looking back on it and saying this out loud now, I think that was probably a turning point for me in my whole career, where it was like, okay, my friend joined this band. He took me on tour to be a merch guy. Like, technically I'm in this world. I can find different stepping stones to get to wherever I think I want to be, which I really didn't know. I even selling merch, I wasn't like, I'm going to become the guitar player of one of my favorite bands someday, but when they asked me to play guitar and I did it, and it was like, oh man, this is one of those moments, playing Deadbolt on stage with my favorite band.
Oh man.
Like, okay, I think I can parlay this into something that is truly what I want to do. And I think I do want to be an artist, and I do have this bug, and I do have, the desire to be one of these guys, and I don't know if it's like this for everyone. I don't know if it was like this for the guys in Thrice in particular, but these, you start out on this journey playing an instrument, and no one ever tells you about how the industry works, or how there's jobs, or how there's a way to truly make it if you really work hard. But when it kind of comes, it's still super surprising. Like, it's wild, like getting to play these big shows and do anything in front of people that care and have had their lives impacted by this music is just a wild opportunity. And that moment playing Deadbolt, and we played in Colorado Springs was my first show with the band, and we played at the Black Sheep. I'll never forget it. But yeah, walking on stage, I was shaking, and we go out, and I went and got to play. Man, there was a few songs. It was on the Beggars tour cycle, and I played a few songs off Beggars, and I played a few other songs. I got to play To Awake and Avenge the Dead, which was incredible.
Oh.
And then, yeah, which I know I'm bouncing around a lot, but that song I actually got to play with them again a few years later when they did their, quote unquote last show before they came back again. They had played at the Observatory in Orange County, and my band Hell or High Water was playing in the smaller room at that venue. And I had gone out and watched them thrice sound check before our show. And I'm sitting there, and Dustin looks down. He's like, "Oh, what's up, dude?" He's like, "Hey, do you want to play the last song with us tonight? You want to play guitar? I'm just going to kind of jump around and sing." And I'm like, "Yes." You just asked me to play the last Thrice song at the last set. Like, holy crap. So yeah, so I got to run on stage and play the breakdown to Awake and Avenge the Dead at the end there.
Oh,
and
man, I love that part so much.
Yeah, it's so fun. It was such a cool thing. So I got to do that, and man,
as I sit here, I should tell you, I look over to my right, and I have the Thrice flag from that farewell tour hanging above, like it covering up guitar cases in my loft, basically, is what it's doing. But it's like,
yeah, that's so
this
cool.
huge, like I'm a big, like they're so important to me as far as like even doing this. I don't know if any band has ever impacted me. I can say without a doubt, no band has ever impacted me the way those guys have. So this is all like, I'm nerding out hearing you tell me these things. So it's pretty
I feel
crazy.
the same, man. It's weird that I even have these stories, and I love the opportunity to talk about my time with that band, because it still trips me out that I have some tiny piece in their band's history. And I think they've only had 3 dudes ever play with them outside of their band, and it was all on that tour. And it was, me and Nate and Casey, and it was a trip, man. It's I'm stoked that I still get to be around them and still get to play shows with them. And this summer tour was so fun. We were skating every day and hanging out and just kind of being mellow old dudes. But it's so cool. Yeah, I got to grow up kind of learning from them, and then got to play with them, and then we were on tour together, and yeah, nuts. Love me some Thrice. Welcome to the Thrice podcast.
Yeah, welcome to the Thrice podcast, which, I mean, this is like, sometimes anyway, especially in the beginning, I felt like I was talking about them on every single episode when this show first started.
Yeah, well, they tick all the boxes, man. Their songs are incredible. The lyrical content is incredible. Their tones are incredible. As people, they're the sweetest people on the planet. Like, they definitely were a massive influence for me, not just from a fan perspective, but being able to be around them while I was kind of young in this industry and watch, the doors that were opened for them by just being the good guy. They've always had that reputation, and they're genuinely sweet people, and people want them to be successful. It's like, you get behind someone like that. Like the old, nice guy finished last is kind of bullshit. Like, I've watched terrible people, lose everything because they are burning bridges and just treating people not the correct way. And I was very fortunate to be able to watch a band like Thrice, come in every day and, thank the security guards, the promoters, be sweet to everyone. Like, there was never any of that rock star ego stuff. And to me, I was like, well, this is my ultimate goal, is to be like a dude in Thrice, or be in a band that has this level of success. So I guess all I got to do is just be really cool to everyone, which I hope is in my nature, and that's kind of the principles that I've stood on since I've had any opportunity in this industry. So
I
shout out
think
to
that's
those
actually.
guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's actually important. I said this to my dad here. I don't know, probably like 7 years ago, but there, well, actually, it was longer ago than that. It was wow, because we're in 2020 now.
Yeah,
Wow,
that happens.
I'm getting old. Wow, this is ridiculous. But during the financial crisis, I was working at a Caterpillar dealer, and it came down to, I didn't know this until afterwards, but it came down to me and another guy getting laid off. And we were both equally skilled and equally qualified and all that stuff.
Sure.
But he was a jerk and I was a nice guy. And so they laid him off.
Yeah, no, that's real, dude. Like, yeah, we all know that. We don't need to be retold or retaught that lesson, but honestly, it was huge for me at being, 21, 22 years old and getting to watch these veteran dudes just be sweet to everyone and really have no issues,
Mm-hmm.
Good things.
It's crazy. It's crazy how that works, right? Like, yeah, you hear the nice guys finish last, but I don't really think that's true. I'm with you on that. I've never had that experience personally. I try to be nice as I can be. I've definitely been a jerk in my past, but I try to fix that.
We're all human, but at the end of the day, especially in the music industry, it's very fleeting. It's a massive opportunity, and it's something that needs to be earned and just as equally can be lost by, not appreciating where you're at. That's just kind of a life lesson, I guess. But in this industry, especially, everyone knows each other. Anything that is said gets around. So you might as well be saying the nice stuff. And, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. And don't do tons of drugs. Those are the simple lessons to success, right?
Yeah. Show up on time. Be nice to everybody. Yeah. Don't do tons of drugs.
Be a dude.
You'll be okay. Yeah. I like it. I feel like that's a very good recipe for success. But we got sidetracked, which is okay, because that's what this podcast is all about, is being sidetracked. Yeah. So what did you end up graduating to after the SVT? Like, now that you're a guitar player primarily?
Yes, now that we're there.
What are you rocking?
10 minutes later. Okay, so when I started playing guitar in Hell or High Water, I jumped from bass to guitar, and I went in hard. I had always been playing Fender basses, so I moved over to Fender guitars, and I started with a Jaguar. It was a Mexican Jaguar is what I started playing guitar on, and then I got my hands on a Fender American Pro Jazzmaster, which is what I play to this day. So I have 5 Jazzmasters now, and I have a Tele Deluxe that I love, and then, what else? I have a American Strat that I'm still playing. These are all from the last 10 years. I don't have many vintage guitars, but the American Pros are incredible. So have been playing Jazzmasters pretty much forever. And then my first amp that I got, which I still have, and I'll bring out from time to time, was the Rocker Verb MK3. I got it right when it came out. Was right when I moved over to guitar, and Jim Root from Slipknot is one of my good friends, and I reached out to him. I'm like, yo, this is a new world to me. I'm overwhelmed with wanting everything. I want I want 12 different amps. What do you think is my move for rock music? And he, without a doubt, was like, the Rocker Verb, the MK3 is nuts. Like, super low vintage gain, super high metal gain, really buttery, glassy, clean stuff. And I was sold. Anything that Jim tells me with that much conviction, I'm like, well, all right, you're one of the most successful tone gurus that I know. So yeah, I jumped right in. I got an Orange deal, and the homie Alex over in Orange got me set up with the Rocker Verb, and
so like, I don't know if you know this. I haven't talked about it that much. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, dude.
I have a decent amount of amplifiers, and a Rocker Verb has been on my list for so long, and you're not making this any easier on me trying to be responsible right now.
And I won't make it easy on you, because I swear to you that is my favorite amp. As far as an analog, all in the box, clean and dirty amp for me as a rock musician, there's nothing better. And I will backpedal a little bit. Another amp that has also impressed me forever and hasn't gone away yet is the oh no, I'm gonna do it. It's the 5150, but my brain
6505.
No. It was the
5153
EVH 5150. I was just trying to remember EVH like an idiot, like the Van Halen. Yeah, EVH.
Yeah.
The EVH 5150. That amp to me is the only thing else that I would put up there in like, must have analog amps for rock guitar playing. The clean in particular on the 5150 is wild. And we got to make a record at Sonic Ranch with Hell or High Water a few years back. I don't know if you're familiar with that spot.
Yes.
I figured you would. No, it's incredible studio. Lucky to be able to record there, but along with just the vibe of the spot, they have every piece of gear you could ever want. I mean, vintage amps, vintage guitars, the whole thing. So we lined up about 5 different amps, vintage Marshalls. There were Vox amps in there, vintage Fender amps, all of this stuff. And I was like almost disappointed for whatever reason, but the EVH and the Orange ended up dominating every piece of vintage gear that we put in front of the mics. So yeah, the Rocker Verb is a must have. The EVH is also up there. That being said, I don't play either of those now, which is part of the deal, right? So I actually
tell me that you went the modeling route, aren't you?
Well, I've had some ups and downs and hybrids, and my eternal tone journey, as we all know, is a huge undertaking. But so I went from that rig, and when I started with the used, even I was playing the Rocker Verb live. The first tour I did with them, I was using the Rocker Verb for all of my dirties, and then I was using a Silverface Fender Twin for my cleans, which was incredible. Like that rig was nuts. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, but being that the used doesn't play small shows, we were playing a lot of these big festivals, and we were doing really, really big, important stuff, playing late in the afternoon. So, shows that really can't be affected by technical difficulties, especially being the only guitar player in the band. So fast forward to the last show of my first tour with the used, we were playing Rocklahoma. We were in Oklahoma City, I think it was. But there's like 10,000 people. We played after the Colt and right before A Perfect Circle. So it was like a massive show.
Oh, wow.
And, at this point I have my Rocker Verb for the dirties. I got the Fender Twin for my cleans. And then I had, 10 pedals on my pedal board. There's like a million different cables. There's a million things that can go wrong. So we're playing the show, and two songs into the set, my whole rig is just gone, like nothing. And my poor guitar tech is the sweetest dude ever. He's running around freaking out, trying to figure out what's going on, unplugging everything, plugging everything back in. It's been like a minute and a half at this point, like no guitar, and Bert's just talking to 10,000 people, trying to keep it going. And at this point he's like, all right, well, we're going to sing The Taste of Ink now. And we just sang that song a cappella with 10,000 people, which honestly was one of the coolest moments for me ever. But like, I'm freaking out. Like, I'm not one to get upset at a tech or anything, because we're all just, no one wants anything bad to happen. But that's the one time in my career that I threw my guitar across the stage, not like viciously, but I like slid it from the ground across the whole stage, which I apologize to my tech for after. But yeah, it was 2 full
just frustrated,
songs.
right? Just like,
I was just like, what is going on? But anyway, yeah, it was 2 full songs with nothing. We ended up just running a cable straight to the Rocker Verb, and I just ended up playing the rest of the set just rock and roll style, which was great. But that being said, we finished that tour, and it was like, hey man, like this can't happen again. We got to figure out a more fail-safe system. We're getting ready to fly all over the world and do all these shows. Like, let's come up with something else. So then I moved into the amp modeling world. And my main goal when I was on the search was to just get rid of my pedal board. I was like, I'll keep my amps, and, I'll get a digital pedal board so that I can, I was only using a handful of different effects. It'll make it easy. I can make different boards for each song, the whole nine. So the more I dug into it, I was like, well, I might as well just build my fly rig into one case. So I ended up getting the Helix. I checked out Axe Effects. I checked out the Kemper. One of them has their pros and cons, but the Helix for me was just kind of checked off all the boxes. The amps you can get to sound pretty good. I was still running them through a live cab, and all of my effects was, super user friendly to get to where I need. And have one cable. Like this seems like the move for convenience. So I played that for a couple tours, and I just couldn't really get the amps sounding the way I wanted, especially coming from like the most balls rock amps in the game to like trying to make something digital really feel close enough for a live setting. So I wasn't really getting there. So now my current rig that I've been playing for, I guess about half a year now, is the Synergy amps. I moved over to the Synergy for all my amps, and I'm still running everything through the Helix for my effects and all of my song changes and everything. So it's a bit of a hybrid rig. I'm playing I'm playing an Angle Savage most of the time for my dirties. And then Synergy has like their version of a Fender Bassman that I use for my cleans. I have a couple Friedman amps in there. So I mean, this whole Synergy thing is wild. I don't know if you've got to mess with them yet.
Not yet. I know about them, and that sounds to me like way appealing. I'm on board with that stuff for sure.
Yeah, honestly, the Synergy stuff is, I didn't know much about it. My buddy Jeff, who works with them, hit me up. Was like, hey, I think you might be a prime candidate to try this stuff out. So so they hooked me up with a rig, and I went into their warehouse in LA actually and tried out all their amps and tried all this stuff, and ended up settling on the Angle Savage and the Bassman for my main tones. But they're just cartridges. Like I don't know if you remember those old Randall heads that had these cartridges that you could pull in and out and
right.
and change the gain staging, do all that stuff. So it's the same exact what's it called? Jeez,
Platform or whatever.
Yeah, it's the same patent. That's the word I was looking for. It's like
gotcha.
The literal same thing, same mechanism, but just built into a one rack unit. So, I basically have this thing. It's called the Syn 2 dual module preamp. So I can slide in any two amps that I want. And it's, these modules are made by the makers of the amps, the respective amps. So, the Friedman amps are coming from Friedman, and the Angle amps are coming from Angle. And it's wild. I mean, the ability to I have two Friedman amps. I have a Fender Bassman and an Angle Savage, all sitting in two rack spaces that I can fly anywhere in the world. And that to me is like my ultimate goal, because it's not digital. It's like I'm running tubes, I'm running everything legit, but it communicates really well with the Helix through their preamp. There's so many ways that you can route everything. So I'm coming straight out of there into 4 live cabs, and then I'm also going through my Helix for the effects. So I think by the end of the line, my front of house guy has 6 guitar lines, which is so silly. I mean, it's because I'm the only guitar player in the band. He's like, we might as well just get everything, make it the coolest sounding thing we could ever do. So
Makes sense.
now I'm super happy with my rig. It's not quite having, my huge analog rig out there with my, vintage Fender Twin and the Rocker Verb and all that stuff, but it's pretty close. It sounds incredible. I'm still micing up a cab. Like that's kind of my biggest deal breaker with the whole digital thing personally is just going straight to front of house. Like I need to be feeling a cab on stage, and I want to hear the mic picking up the cab. I don't want to hear the direct signal. And it may just be me, but I just don't like the way it sounds. Like I've definitely heard recordings from front of house and seen videos, and everything sounds great. But as far as the feel on stage and in my ears, like I got to have real cabs out there. So
that makes
all the
sense.
running. Yeah. Right. Like I'm like becoming an old rock guy. So I'm playing ball with the young world, and I got my hybrid rig that I love. I can fly it everywhere in the world, so I have the same rig everywhere. Yeah, it's tight, and I'm still playing the Jazz Masters. Yeah, dude, I'm set right now. I love my rig.
On the internet, I say that I hate the Helix and I hate all this stuff, but I don't really, because I'm on the podcast. I'm like, the reason I'm not interested in it is because I don't have to be. If I was doing what you were doing, I'd be hyper interested in it. Like,
Well,
I'd be
that's
super stoked.
exactly. Yeah,
I'm a
that's
glorified
exactly
bedroom
my
player
world.
at best. Like, I just come out here to my weird little gear hoard and nerd out on stuff by myself. You know, like, I'm not doing what you're doing. If I was doing that, I would 100% have a Helix, like, guaranteed.
Yeah, and that's, my studio, which I'm in the process of rebuilding right now, but that's always been my studio setup. I have my amps stacked up on my shelves, and I have cables running to all of them and different cabs in the live room, and I'm not privy to just getting a digital signal and recording for convenience when I'm at home. Like, I want to put the work in, I want to place the mics, I want to make it sound really, really cool. And then the cool thing about the future that we're in now is I can also emulate all of those sounds. I can keep those and come back to them for convenience and get pretty close. There's tons of insane software to help do that, but I'm not going to get rid of my amps. I'm not getting rid of the stuff, because when I plug into it, it's like, oh yeah, like, this is what guitar is supposed to sound like. This is what it's supposed to feel like. And I'm sure this too, but you plug into an incredible amp and you're playing an incredible guitar, you feel like a better player. Like, you play
Yes.
so much better than playing through whatever digital software and whatever guitar. And, that stuff really does matter when you get down to it.
Like, I'm far from a good guitar player, but I feel like being such a gear nerd and playing just simply like time with the instrument, like, and just playing so much, excuse me, at least more than old Blake used to. I've definitely gotten to be a better player because of gear in a weird roundabout way. I know that's the opposite effect happens for a lot of people, but because I've just played so much, I'm a better player now than I was like 3 years ago.
Absolutely. And even like you said, like, even in a 3-year period, when I like officially made the switch back to guitar from bass, I had this weird blockage that I wasn't good enough to be a guitar player in a real band. It was like, oh, well, I'm good enough to play bass, and I'm a confident, good bass player. I think I could be one of the better bass players. And that's where my confidence kind of stopped for a lot of years, and I think it's because I was surrounded by such talented guitar players, like Phil Scrosso with As I Lay Dying. He's one of the most insane guitar players ever, and I didn't realize that because it was just like my bud. It's like, you don't expect your friend to be one of the best, most talented people in the world at anything, no matter what. So, I always just had this perception that everyone who's ever played guitar in a band professionally is at least as good as Phil, and here I am 15, 16 years later going, no one's as good as Phil still, like, that guy's just a freaking wizard. So, once I jammed with a couple other bands and I was around some other musicians that weren't, this insane thing, it was like, oh, these people are just really good at writing songs and, really understanding the importance of just laying down rhythm instruments. And you don't have to be able to shred and do all this crazy, wild Van Halen stuff to be able to write a good song and perform that good song live. So yeah, once I kind of jumped into guitar, I was like, okay, I can do this. And then from playing every day and just practicing and wanting to get better and really just wanting to be as good as Phil someday, I've definitely progressed even in the last 4 or 5 years, 25 years or whatever I am into playing guitar. I'm still progressing by practicing all the time. And, especially as a grown dude, you don't think that that's possible. You're just like, well, I've reached my potential and it is what it is. But, you do anything every day and you practice and you really, really can show improvements. I mean, the fact that I can play guitar solos now is something that I just didn't think was an attainable part of my life for a lot of years. And yeah, it's a trip. It's fun. Beautiful instrument.
I relate to that so hard. I'm just like, you want me to solo? How about a power chord instead? Can I do that instead? That'll be cool.
Yeah, man. That was some of that Thrice stuff. You know, when I had to play those songs, I remember is it Deadbolt that has, oh man, there was like a tapping part I had to play or something.
Deadbolt's got some shreddy stuff going on.
It's got the tappy. Sure. It's got the shreddy. So I remember learning that song in that day or two, and I was like, oh man, like I can do this stuff. You know, I was terrified 5 minutes ago, and then all I had to do was just try and learn it and figure it out and get my fingers to do what I want them to do. And I was like, okay, well, I can check that box off. Like I now know how to do, you know, finger tapping stuff if I ever care to do it again. So yeah, man, it's just practicing and sitting in your room full of gear is the best thing you can ever do.
I just had, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but Daniel Donato was on the podcast here just not too long ago. Just a crazy talented, just insane like country player. And he's, I mean, I've watched him for a long time. He's been playing since he was, or been like in the public eye since he was like 19. So he's been around for quite a while, even though he's not that old. You know, and I've always watched him as one of those guys that's just, I'm just like, well, I'll never be able to do that. And that's probably true. I probably won't ever be able to do what he does, but he really inspired me he was like, oh, well, yeah, I've got some natural ability in this, but you know, when I first started, I was playing 12 hours a day. It's like, oh, you just have time in like not just, but like he's obviously naturally talented, but he put in that grind, you know, that I never have. I've said on the internet a couple times, I've only ever spent 12 hours complaining about things. I've never actually, you know, tried to put in that kind of effort.
It's wild when you really think about, you know, you think about a band in particular, not just a player or a writer, but like a band like The Used is a great example. So, you know, The Used has 1 billion records. There's 1,000 songs. There's all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, past 25, 26 songs from their entire catalog, there's not much more that you're ever going to play live, you know? So realistically, if you get really, really good at 25 songs, like that's essentially all you'll ever have to play for the rest of your life. So if you play those same 25 all the time, you know, it's eventually you're going to be the best at those songs. You know, I don't have to know how to play, you know, some crazy Yngwie solos to be able to play in a band and to write songs that connect with people. And there's all sorts of these weird mental blocks that I think we build up for, I don't know why or where they come from, but there's this perception that I'll never be able to do what these other special people can do. But man, sitting down and just playing the same stuff all the time, it's like, you're going to get good at it. Like you don't have a choice. You're going to get good at that breakdown if you play it 100 times. You're going to get good at that solo if you played 100 times, you know? So
it's true.
Yeah. And even, you know, a great example, I'll keep using it, is, you know, I grew up being a fan of The Used as well. Like they were a big part of my life forever. And Quinn was actually one of my favorite guitar players. And, you know, that's how I bought my first DL4 is because I saw him using one and I got obsessed with dotted eighth delay and all this stuff that I kind of picked up from Quinn, you know, never thinking that I would ever get to be playing these parts. So it's definitely a trip, you know, listening to stuff and practicing something long enough, even from when you're a kid, it's going to influence everything you're doing.
It's so cool that you started out as a fan. And what's trips me out sometimes to think about too is, you know, all these bands that I grew up with and that I was a super fan of and still am, that when I like start doing the research, I'm like, oh, these guys aren't really that much older than me. It feels like they are because they're doing all these big, amazing things. I'm like, oh, they're only like 5 years older than me or something.
Yeah, they all just hit it good at 18, man.
It's so crazy. There's so many that I could point to that fit that description, but it's got to be a trick because my journey was a lot different, you know, so it's hard for me to wrap that around my mind sometimes, or whatever I just said.
For sure.
Say that, right?
Yeah, I was just surrounded by so many people that fell into incredible opportunities, you know, like the Cove and Phil thing are two massive events in my whole group of friends that kind of set us on this path to, you know, to destruction. Now, I don't know what we're all going to do when we're in our 50s, but for now, we're all still playing music and starting families and pulling it off by playing our instruments. And what a trip.
Yeah. Yep. Hopefully we can all keep doing that thing to where, we can be a Keith Richards. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Keith Richards
die on
minus the hard
stage.
drugs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I may have kept him alive. Maybe that piece of advice is wrong, but doesn't work for me.
I don't know. I feel like he's the only one. I think he's an anomaly.
That's true. Yeah, he's living off of other people's blood too, I think. So we're good.
That could be. He's got all those people who died from the drugs. He's absorbed their energy somehow through cocaine.
That's great. 100%.
Well, we got just a couple more minutes here, and I should probably let you put up a billboard for anything that you want to talk about right now. It doesn't matter what it is. This is your time to shine.
I will say, outside of me doing the stuff with the Used, and we have a new record coming out and songs that are wild and I can't wait for people to hear, but I'm also managing a couple bands that I'm excited about, so Dead American, who I've mentioned obviously like 100 times in this thing, with Cove and Kyle Rosa and some other incredible musicians. They're putting out a new record this year as well. And that's nuts. I mean, I know a lot of people have been waiting for Cove to do something big since Seosin, and they put an EP out about a year ago, and they just finished up making a new record. But they're an insane band. I want people to check out Dead American with Cove, and then there's a band called Dragged Under that are my freaking dudes that I'm also managing, and they have a record coming out this month, and we're actually bringing them out on the Used tour.
That's Fluff's band.
Fluff's band, yes. Fluff and Tony and Josh and the guys. Everyone knows Fluff.
All my listeners are gonna super know Fluff. I don't think
Fluff's the guy.
Oh man, dude, this is so cool. I just connected that in my head. There we go.
Yeah,
cool.
Dragged Under, man. You got to check them out. Their songs that are out are incredible. The songs that are coming out are incredible. It's cool how I got started with them too. All of you guys know who Fluff is, and so do I from the internet, going back to the Helix and all of my searching for my rig. When I joined the Used, I was all over YouTube, and Ryan came up a ton, and I ended up reaching out to him on Instagram. I was like, hey dude, looking into the Helix stuff. And I had some questions about setting up my rig, and he was super helpful, friendly guy, just being the good guy and helping me out. And then kind of out of the blue, a few months after we started talking, he was like, oh, you got to check out, my new band's demos. It was just like, he wasn't asking me to manage him. There was nothing other than check out these songs. And he sent them to me, and I was like, whoa, dude, this is incredible. Like, I would love to, send it to some people, help out however I can. And, fast forward, I guess we're about 8 months in, and, I'm managing them now. The record's coming out. We're bringing them on tour. And they're so cool. They're a band I'm super, super excited about for 2020 and big in the future. And I'm going to do everything I can for them. And they're just sick. They're just a band that I was like, you guys are dope. Like, I like this music. I want to be a part of it. So check it out.
That's fantastic. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Good plugs. Those are good plugs. Check out some sweet new bands. That's
check
the
out
best
new
plugs
bands.
you can do, right?
Yeah. Who cares about other stuff?
Yeah, check out some sweet new music. Go stream it right now. You're already on your phone.
Stream it, get it.
But after this podcast is over, because there's some stuff I got to talk to you guys about at the end, probably. I always do an outro.
We're done. Leave now.
Don't leave. Don't leave, people. Don't leave. I actually have no idea if this outro is going to be important or not, but that's entire. I don't know when this is coming out. We're going to find out. Exactly. Well, this is the last question. This is the big one. This is the one people get worked up about. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Ooh, that's actually easy. I'm a big pizza fan, and my wife and I have kind of always crushed the same za. It's what brought us together.
Nice.
And we get a pepperoni, pineapple, black olive. Yes, pineapple.
I gotta go with the pineapple.
Yes, pineapple. It's so interesting to me how heated people get about pineapple on pizza, because it's exclusively how I like to consume my pineapple. Like, I'm not a fan of let's cut a slice and have some fresh pineapple, but on my pizza, I'm in. I'm sorry if you guys all hate me.
Well, no, I would say this audience is right down the middle. They're about 50-50 if the Facebook group is any indication on the total audience of this podcast. I'm one of those. The whole pineapple thing is weird to me because I'm just not a pineapple fan, just in general, and I've been publicly saying I don't like pineapple on pizza way before the internet made it a thing. Like this podcast was actually older than the internet hate of pineapple on pizza. And
yeah, I didn't realize that it was such a topic of hatred for years. That's kind of always been my pizza, and then all this stuff started popping. I was like, oh great, of course I'm on the wrong side of this argument.
I don't know. I feel like it's very much. I don't know. I feel like it's very 50-50. I don't know if there's a wrong answer. I just know for me, I'm not a fan of that particular fruit. So that could change. That could change.
I used to work at a pizza shop. I delivered pizzas for a long time with like a ton of dudes that were touring musicians too. It was a trip. But the pineapple pizza that they would make at our restaurant in Leucadia, they would put cinnamon on it. And it was a delightful change of events.
Interesting.
You try that. You order your Hawaiian with cinnamon, it's good.
I'll have to put some thought into this.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. I feel that.
Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on. This has been a really great treat, and I think we should slide over to Patreon now. What do you think?
Let's do that.
All right, everybody. For Joey, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck in good tones. Okay, that does it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you need more, guess what? Joey was kind enough to hop over to Patreon and hang out for even more content. So if that's your thing, for $5 a month, you can help support the show and keep this thing going and get extra episodes every week. Sometimes they are extended interviews like this one. Sometimes it is me and my good friend Justin Porter nerding out on gear and nonsense. And sometimes it's me doing my own lonesome little pedal demos and other sorts of audio kind of, well, I don't know what you would call it. I guess just other forms of audio content. But mostly, it's been other interviews lately. So if you like the show and you've listened this far and you want more of it, that's where you go. So head over to patreon.com/tonemob for more of me and Joey. And I hope to see you guys at NAMM, because I think is this the last episode? No, there'll be one more that comes out before NAMM. So you'll probably hear about NAMM for a while, but I'll try to keep it to a minimum. I know you get beat over the head with NAMM coverage as soon as that show hits, but I will do my best. All right, everybody. Talk to you next time. Bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.